So with Tom Brady joining the Buccaneers in free agency, the writing looks to be on the wall for Jameis Winston, and after 5 seasons with the Buccaneers, it looks like he's going to need to find a new place to go home. That said, today I thought it would be fun to talk a little bit about the teams that I could see Jameis Winston possibly suiting up for in this year's upcoming NFL season. But before we start, I want to go ahead and take some time to thank you so much for your incredible support. The channel has grown by over 200 subscribers in a week, and it's really all thanks to your consistent support. I also want to quickly mention that only a small percentage of the people who watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if you do end up enjoying this video and haven't done so already, please do consider subscribing to keep up with everything happening in the NFL right now. And with all that being said, let's get started. So to start, I do think that Jameis will end up having to sit on the bench for a year or two, and really, as it stands, there doesn't look to be a team that seems like they're interested in Jameis being their starting quarterback. And I mean, after his 30 for 30 season, I don't think you can really blame them. That said, Jameis does still have a ton of potential. I just think the issue with Jameis is the fact that he's still a very raw talent, and since he's never had the opportunity to really work behind a veteran, rather he was just thrown to the wolves, Jameis has remained very raw throughout his first 5 years. I think that as much as he may not like sitting on the bench, it's going to benefit him in the long run and will really give him the much needed opportunity to refine his game and iron out the issues that got him there in the first place. Much like any raw talent though, there's a ton of upside when we're talking about Jameis. Jameis really has that boom or bust mantra and needs some structure to lessen the bust and capitalize on the boom. Now with all that in mind, there are 3 teams that I could see Jameis joining in the offseason, and again though, he will be the backup for every team. Starting with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Steelers are coming off of a rough year where they bounced between Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges after Big Ben went down with a Liz Frank injury in his elbow, and through Roethlisberger's injury, we got a real good glimpse at what life without Big Ben in Pittsburgh is like, and it's not pretty. The Steelers lack proper depth at the quarterback position, which is why they struggled last year, and the issue with the Liz Frank injury is that no one knows if Big Ben will ever return to form. It was a serious elbow injury and could spell the end of his career, or at the very least, some serious regression. Bringing Jameis in will not only provide the Steelers with a reliable backup, but will also give the Steelers a direction to turn when Roethlisberger decides to hang the pads up. But this isn't just a one-way street that only favors the Steelers. Jameis is going to have the opportunity to learn behind Ben Roethlisberger, who is a much-needed veteran presence for Jameis at this point in his career. Big Ben also has a somewhat similar but much more refined playstyle when compared to Jameis, which is going to help Jameis develop his own playstyle as he can look to and learn from Ben Roethlisberger. You then have Mike Tomlin, who's a great coach and a great leader that can help Jameis build on what he's great at and iron out the problematic pieces to his game. Ultimately, I think that this is a two-way street. Both sides benefit heavily, and I think that Jameis would be a great addition for the Steelers. Next up, we have my New Orleans Saints. Now, the Saints do have Taysom Hill. However, with his injury history and playstyle making him very much injury-prone, I think it makes sense to bring in another, more traditional quarterback to, at the very least, compete for the starting job once Breeze is gone. One of Jameis's big issues is his decision-making. Sitting behind Drew Brees would help him iron out these issues though, and I also think that Sean Payton would have a lot of fun with Jameis as he is a big arm, Favre-like quarterback, and of course Sean will help Jameis iron out these decision-making issues as well. Now, as a Saints fan, I'm not exactly too sure how I'd feel about this. I do think that Jameis had an inflated interception total just simply because it was his first year in Arians' system. I mean, you take a look at Carson Palmer's first year with Arians and you see the exact same pattern. Year 1 is typically rocky with Arians. However, the issue with Jameis that wasn't present with Palmer is the fact that Jameis has always been turnover heavy. So, although we know it was an inflated total based off of precedent, we don't know how much it was inflated. And I mentioned it before, Jameis is a boom or bust kind of guy, and because of that and all of the question marks around him, I don't know how I'd feel about bringing Jameis in. Now, if we do end up bringing him in and the Saints still choose to move forward with Taysom once Breeze is gone, even after Jameis has a year or two to develop behind Breeze, then he can simply re-enter free agency, and he'll probably be a very, very sought-after free agent because he will have gained a ton sitting behind Breeze and will be a much more refined talent when all is said and done, even if he doesn't become their future. Lastly, we have the Colts. Now, the Colts signed Philip Rivers to a 1-year deal, which leaves room for the possibility of Jameis coming in, sitting behind Rivers for a year working to iron out his game, and then becoming their full-time starter in 2021. That said, the Colts still do have Jacoby Brissett, but I don't think that they view Brissett as a long-term solution for their quarterback position, as evidenced by them bringing Rivers in to replace him. Simply put, the issue with Brissett is his inability to push the ball downfield, which caused a lot of issues for the Colts last year. And the best thing about Andrew Luck when he was still playing was his ability to do this, to push the ball downfield. So it was a little bit hard for them to adjust from a guy that was great at pushing the ball down the field to a guy that simply struggles to do so. That said, this would not be an issue if they had Jameis Winston. Again, though, they'd have to rein in Jameis Winston's interception total, and I think that Frank Reich would be able to help him a lot in that regard. Fact is, if Frank Reich brings Jameis in, is able to rein him in, and is able to help him make better decisions, then the Colts' offense would be as good, if not better, than it was under Andrew Luck. They'd be able to push the ball down the field again, and Jameis would have an absolute field day with guys like T.Y. Hilton and Paris Campbell, and ultimately, I think that this is the perfect fit. If the Colts are able to help him lower his turnover rate, this is a great fit. Now, I think that Jameis will always find himself on the higher echelon of the interception pool at the end of the season, much like Favre did when he played, but that doesn't mean that he can't lower the total. At the end of the day, I think that the Colts would be the best fit for Jameis. Their system is absolutely perfect for his playstyle, and if they can help him weed out the bad habits he's developed, it's a perfect marriage. And that's about it for this video. But before I go, let me ask you, where do you think Jameis Winston will play in 2020?